This makes me wonder, if Brahman is the ultimate reality, why do the Hindus worship the way we do? I mean, what is the Sanatan thinking on that?
Well, I explain to you the concept of Ishwar. Okay? So, now worship practices, we basically have three worship practices. Right? One is the worship of Ishwar. Second is the worship of such a large pantheon of gods. There's so many gods, no? Indra, Varuna, all of them are gods. Then we have the worship of avatar. Correct? So these are the three forms that we worship. And how do we worship them? Through imagery, through idol worship. Correct? So the how is the idol worship part of it. The what is Ishwara, pantheon of gods, and we got out. Correct? So all these gods are Puranic gods. Purana is Hindu mythology. Okay, if you understand it as Hindu mythology, you will realize that every story or the creation of a god and a story behind it has a moral of the story. We are very happy reading Aesop's fables because there is a, what do you say? There is a fox and a crow and stuff like that, and in the end you have a moral of the story. We don't think twice about it, right? But we have a rich literature of Puran and which has gods. And gods created to teach us lessons through their stories. We listen to the stories, we worship the gods, but we never pay attention to the moral of the story they're supposed to teach. That is the point. Okay, now, I'll tell you how personification happens. Okay, Ishwara, look at a management company. Okay, there is Ishwara. Now there are three functions: creation, dissolution, preservation. So Ishwar gains three personifications, three functional facets: Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. Correct? Now beyond that, there is Shakti. What is Shakti? Ishwara acts out of his potency. Because see, there is form, there is power. Correct? Now, can fire and the power of fire be separated? You can't. Similarly, Ishwar and Shakti cannot be separated. But if Ishwar is there, then Ishwar's potency is Shakti. A simple example would be, if I am this person sitting here, my ability to speak to you today cannot be separated from me. Did you get the point? It's one of the aspects of my strengths. Okay? Or abilities. Similarly, Ishwar and Shakti cannot be separated. So, Ishwar and his potency is Shakti. Correct? In different traditions, in the Vaishnava tradition, who is Ishwar? Param Vishnu is Ishwar. All others are secondary gods. In the Shaiva tradition, Shiva Tattva or Param Shiva, that is given the status of Ishwar, the others are secondary gods. Then you have the Shakta. In the Shaktas, they have Ishwari, Shakti, as the mother creatrix goddess. All others are subsidiary or secondary to the mother goddess, because they believe that that is where the universe gets created from. Are you getting it? So these personifications are there. But in addition to that, I'm going to tell you something. Vishnu himself, we go to the pantheon of gods now. We've understood Ishvara and Ishwari. The pantheon of gods. Take Vishnu. Vishnu, the greatest, when you look at Vishnu as the greatest God, he has again been given 4 functions. And his functional manifestations are called Vyuha. So it is Vasudev, it is Sankarshana, it is Pradyumna, and it is Aniruddha. Okay, these 4. And what do they do? So now you look at the human body and you will find a lot of the human body's deities come from these and their functions, of course, in the universe. So you have one functional specialization, Vasudeva, he presides over feeling. Sankarshana presides over willing. That means taking a decision to do something. It's an active force, Sankarshana. Then there is Pradyumna, that about knowing, realizing. That is Pradyumna. And Aniruddha is action. So these are the viewers, and you have different deities presiding over the way your mind works. Are you understanding this point? Similarly, now Brahma, the creator, he has many facets, and one of the facets is Prajapati. And do you know, Prajapati is a personification. There are 10 Prajapatis with different functions, and they have 10 different names. You have Shiva. Shiva has many functions like Shankara, Rudra, and all. So even if you just take Rudra, there are 11 Rudras. Everyone has a separate name. So you look at the functional specializations and super specializations and further super specializations, and you have your gods placed. But these are all personalizations of the various functions of the universe or functions of the body. And further, we even have personifications of all the natural phenomenon. Aditya, the sun god. There are 12 Adityas with different names for different months. And they all become our god. Because Hindus believe there is Brahman in everything. And because they believe there is Brahman in everything, they personify everything like rain, sun, moon, and they become there. There's a presiding deity allotted. So this is how the worship tradition in Hindus works. But what is most important is you should know who you worship and why you worship. Now the last aspect is left, that is avatar. What is avatar? This is a very interesting concept, avatar. In Hinduism, it is conceived that a realized soul, which means I spoke about soul evolution, a realized soul, okay, may not necessarily take birth, but it can choose to take birth for a greater good on earth and do some good work. And avatar literally means descent. Okay, so all descent of realized souls would be avatar. But what we classically understand as avatar is Krishna, Rama. Okay? Now here, it is believed that when the nadir in society or the very bottom pit of society, you reach the bottom in terms of morals, what they call adharma, that is the time the cosmic spirit, the Vishwatman, itself descends